Hello to everyone and welcome to a new PentaBAR. And this time we're doing this open and live because there's a subject very dear to my heart. And it's from product-led growth to hypergrowth with Irina Scarlat from Revolut, former head of growth at Revolut. But we'll speak that in the moment. Why this is very keen to my heart is that we'll address two streams of subjects. One, the impressive career of Irina, and the second, how do you actually manage the growth and the hyper growth in this kind of companies? Everybody says it's simple, but maybe it's not that simple. So these pentabars are our series of spreading the knowledge, there about various subjects on tech subjects. And this is one of them. If you want to see more, just subscribe to our channels and to the Pentalog pages. To see all the others that are behind closed doors. This will be open just for you to see how it tastes and feels. I am Mihai Zânt, and I'm a coach and a trainer, and also co-founder of Career Shift and a managing partner in Humanistic. So for me, these themes are very, very important. It's also part of my mission to share the knowledge, both on these two things, career and managing growth. So it's not every day that you get the chance to talk to a senior product marketeer about hypergrowth, and the holy grail for entrepreneurs and investors and everyone actually involved in the company, it is hypergrowth. So that's why Irina Scarlat, who is the former global head of growth for Revolut and lead marketing manager for Uber before that, will come alongside and we'll talk about that. So just wait for Irina and we go directly to the subject. Hello, Irina. How are you?
Hello, Mihai. I'm very good. How are you?
Fine. It's Wednesday, it's noon, and we're doing this kind of pentabars to spread the knowledge and spread the know-how. I'm grateful you're here. I know that you're now in a sabbatical, letting the information settle after doing a very, very good job at Revolut in the growth, especially in our markets that we see now. How do you feel in this period of yours?
Good. Good. So it's almost 1 month. I've been traveling a bit, as much as it's safe during a global pandemic. Not what I have planned for my sabbatical, because I always said that I'm going to take a sabbatical to travel the world, which is obviously not possible at this time. As I was telling you before going live, I'm surprisingly busy. I have a lot of conversations. I keep myself busy. I started learning. I started doing several certifications programs that I postponed for a while now. Mm-hmm. I read more than I used to because I didn't have the time. So I'm enjoying some, and of course I'm enjoying quality time with my little dragon.
I think sabbaticals are, very useful periods to really rethink, reposition, and maybe, re-strategize about career and others, and that's a passion of mine. But I'll go straight to the point with a question because, you have all these mean voices of people, and they are saying, including about yourself, that it's easy to be in a startup that it's has high potential and it's running fast and it has the potential for a hyper growth. And for me, that's like saying that you've got a big wave and that necessarily means that you know how to surf. So you have an impressive CV and you had two successes in Uber and in Revolut. How do you see this? What's your perspective? What's your take?
So I've oftentimes heard from people that have never grown a company themselves that it's very easy to grow a company. It's just about the company. Of course, these types of people also forget that there are very good companies, very good ideas that simply die because they aren't managed properly. I think it's very, very important. Yes, both Revolut and Uber had a very, very good product, had a disruptive product, and that's essential to hypergrowth, because you can't just achieve hypergrowth no matter what you do, no matter how much money you invest, no matter how good your marketing team is, unless you had that product. So it's true, both Revolut and Uber had a very good product, but from product to hypergrowth, it's a very long way. And unless you do it properly, and unless you do it right, and by right I mean through a process of trial and error, of constant experimentation, of frequent iteration, of bringing incredibly good people to share the journey with, you're not going to succeed no matter what you do. There's a myth that there are products that grow by themselves. What people that are less experienced might perceive that, that product actually grows by itself, is the network effects. But the question is, okay, if when a product has network effects, it means it grows by itself. But how do you actually get to those network effects? Because that's the question. Why not all products go to network effect? And here, in order to reach a network effect, you need the team, you need the experimentation, you need to do it right.
And that's completely true in our series that I was talking earlier in the PentaBARs, that you can, all the people can see there in the page. We were addressing, a problem to solutions fit, then product solution fit. Then you are talking about product-led growth to hypergrowth. How do you actually, make this step? What's key there to happen?
So I think I oftentimes see, when I look at the tech world, I will oftentimes see a huge debate between product-led growth and product people saying, "Oh, it's all about product," and then marketing-driven growth and marketing people saying, "Oh no, it's all about marketing." In fact, and truth is, both are wrong, are equally wrong. They couldn't achieve hypergrowth one without another, and they forget a very important stuff that's right in the middle, and that's the user. Because if you want to achieve hypergrowth, okay, first you need to focus on the product and invest all the resources out there to build a top-notch product. Without that product, you're doomed. But then I see a lot of companies that hire very expensive marketing agencies, or spend a lot of money, spend a lot of budgets, a lot of marketing money, and never achieve hypergrowth, and they are surprised. And the truth is that they skipped the step that was right in the middle, and that's community-driven growth. That's working with your users and turning your users into growth vectors for your product. And that requires much more than a marketing budget. That requires a strong team that invests the resources, that genuinely cares about the users that they're serving, that invests all the available resources. And I'm not talking money here, I'm talking about time and energy, which are more expensive and harder to find than money themselves, in order to build a strong community of users around the product, in order to listen to those users and make sure that the product always responds to their needs and evolves as the user evolves. And then another mistake that I frequently see is that, okay, so here's the equation. It's super simple. So it's product-driven growth, then you have community-driven growth, and then you have marketing-driven growth. But the truth is, it's a continuous loop, because your product is constantly evolving. It's not, if you have the same product today as you had 3 years ago, you're doing it wrong, because your product should evolve as well. And then you need to have this constant feedback loop that goes from product to community to marketing, and then the other way around.
Oh, that's very very nice perspective. I will switch it, from career to the technique. So
And
I was
also,
thinking,
one thing,
yeah,
one more thing to add here. I know that there are a lot of very smart people out there, and a lot of people that believe that they have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. I never had all the answers, and I think that people that believe that have all the answers are doing it wrong, because it's a matter. So what worked for Uber didn't work for Revolut, and I didn't even try to apply the same
yeah.
thing. I think that what's very important. Okay, hypergrowth is not an objective in itself. You need to actually be consistent in experimenting, in trying things out, in bringing your product to market, and adapting your product and your strategy depending on the feedback that you get from the users. It's a constant communicator. It's a constant communication, and frequent iterations lead you to hypergrowth, which again, it's a consequence, and it's not an objective in itself.
That's it's brilliant perspective, and I'm fully on the same page. And whenever people think that they have the recipe for success, I mean, you can see a big failure in the next encounter. So, but Uber, Revolut, wow, I mean, there's quite a jump. What works for Uber? What would you say? You are leading the marketing strategy here in Romania. What worked for that, and what would you would say that were the key things that differentiated the growth?
There were a lot of things. So first, it was the product, because we were actually offering people an alternative to move from point A to point B, in a simple way, in a straightforward way, in a cost-effective way. We were helping people move faster throughout the cities, and solving a problem that we have in Bucharest. Because if you look at Bucharest, we have one parking place for every 5 cars. It's the biggest challenge out there to just go in the city center and just hope to find a parking place for your car. So we were actually solving a problem, and then I think that what helped us back at Uber was the team. So we've built a very strong team who was always connected with the user. So we tried a lot of growth tactics. Some worked, some failed gloriously. But we were always like launching one thing, or trying it out, or seeing if it works. If it worked, we scaled, and we did it across all our cities. And we playbooked it for our colleagues in other markets to be able to tap into it. If it didn't, we playbooked it again in order to make sure that the others avoid. But we moved very fast. So I think that the reason Uber became a mainstream product in Romania is that we had the first mover advantage. We were the first ride sharing company to come to Romania, and we moved really really fast
Mhm.
in showing users the value that the product actually brings. So I see oftentimes in marketing, and I think it's a mistake in marketing and product. People are in love. Entrepreneurs are in love with their product, and their products are so sexy and cool, and they have so many features. The truth is that once you get so when you target innovators and early adopters, when you just launch it's people are excited about the product as well. But as you go into the early majority, as you go mainstream, the truth is, like, that's it's the GIF with SpongeBob. Nobody cares. Users don't care. So as a marketer, I think it's very important to focus on the functional side of the product, and on answering very very clear, very simple, the users, what's in it for them. What do they have to use? There were a lot of growth tactics that we deployed at Uber, from strategic partnerships to doing fun activations to generate noise and raise awareness about the presence of Uber in Romania. But in the end, it comes down to the team, to moving fast, to experimentation, and to showing users exactly what's in it for them, as opposed to bluffy blah blah PR stuff that
Yeah.
doesn't actually, users don't care.
Okay. And I mean, I'm very passionate about what you're saying. Is I call that velocity, and going and iterating with at a very fast pace. And sometimes I am surprised about I'm thinking about a feature, I'm launching it, and I didn't quite trust in it, and then it goes exponential. Did you experience that in Uber, and maybe if not in Revolut? I mean, when you try something, you weren't projecting success for that feature, but it was actually taking off. Is that?
um, so I can't remember of any features
Mhm.
like that, but I'm sure that there were some features. I think that every feature that you launch, it's about the go-to market. So I'm going to quote Mark Zuckerberg here. I've just listened. I've started listening again. Reid Hoffman's Masters of Scale podcast, which is a podcast that I loved, and I started listening to the episodes again. And Mark Zuckerberg was telling how he was a visionary, and he anticipated the shift to mobile. So he made all the company work really hard in order to launch Facebook Mobile, and then it was the big launch day, and then Nothing happened, because people were accustomed to using Facebook on desktop, and nobody was actually downloading the app to use Facebook on mobile. It's not only about the feature and how radical and revolutionary the feature is. It's also about the go-to-market strategy. It's also about bringing that feature to users and making users understand how can that particular feature that you're launching, that particular product, is making their lives better. Again, it gets back to functionality. If I am to look at myself, I consider myself a functional marketer. So I'm very data driven and I'm functional in approach. I'm not a big fan of using creativity for buzz, because my question is, okay, how does that buzz actually translate into my product metrics? Because if it doesn't, I don't care.
Okay, nice. It's just awareness, indeed.
Yeah.
And
The awareness doesn't necessarily translate into traction, because it can be awareness, like people talking about your product, but or the people that are talking about your product might not be in the target market of your product, might not be the key audience for your product. So then it's awareness for the sake of awareness, or the type of awareness to make your grandma proud because she sees you on TV or something.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it doesn't reflect in your business, so it doesn't matter.
Ego inflating, awareness, not KPIs capitalizing on that.
Yeah.
And I'm passing now to Revolut, global head of growth. And I mean, that sounds, what does that mean actually? And what's maybe the difference between a CMO and a global head of growth?
Yeah, so I think that's a very important point to take. I think that if you're asking 10 questions, if you're asking 10 people what growth is, you're going to get 10 different answers, from the very simplistic one that growth equals performance marketing only, which was never the case for me. On my side, I'm not a performance marketer, never been, never will be. So as global head of growth at Revolut, I'm going to tell you the story of how we got there. So basically, I joined
Perfect.
Revolut in early 2018. Back then, it was quite a small company, a couple of hundred employees, close to 1 million users. I saw the potential. I really loved the product. That's why I joined. And I joined as country manager for Romania. Back then, we had 20K users here.
I was one of them. I remember even when you stepped in.
Nice. So one of the early users.
Yeah.
And So the KPI was to get to 100K users by the end of the year, with no marketing budget, and with no dedicated local team. I was working with a distributed team based in London and Krakow, and we did it. I got to 150K users by the end of the year. But at that point, it became clear that there's only so much growth that you can deliver, unless you have the right processes in place and the right resources. And by resources, I'm talking first and foremost about people. So I started chasing our leadership team on Slack, and I was like, okay, so we did this and it's fantastic, but if we want to grow further and reach our true potential in the markets where we operate, we need more than this. We need a different org structure. We need different processes. And they were very open, and they were like, yes, you're right. What's your proposal? So I started researching org structures, and I started looking into companies that scaled fast and their org structures, and I came up with a proposal that was approved by the board, and I ended up leading what we called our growth machine, which is basically a fancy name for our efforts of building our growth department. So building a central growth department on one side, with central teams to cover different functions and to build the processes required for local teams to deliver, and then building minimum viable market teams in our priority markets. That's major markets in Europe and in our expansion markets. So I did that. Then I was promoted to lead the CE region. And then as global head of growth, I basically led the organization that I built in early 2019. So that's 15 teams, 15 different teams across Europe and the United States, plus the central team who was in charge with building central campaigns, central initiatives, central partnerships, and B, setting up the processes in order to make sure that we are consistent, and in order to make sure that the 15 teams that I had operating across the world were not building 15 different companies. Because if you don't have the right processes in place, you're going to have the teams doing whatever they want, and some of it might be good, some of it might be bad, but it's not going to be the same brand. So we needed to have the central processes in order to ensure the consistency of the brand throughout markets.
And I mean, how do you actually go? I mean, everybody admires the marketing of Revolut, and what I hear is that you started, with no budget. And what was the differentiator there in order you reached 15 million, if I'm correct, users? What's that?
1 second. Sorry, you got cut off.
Yeah, I was asking about, everybody. I was saying a bit of a context that everybody loves the marketing strategy of Revolut, and if I'm not mistaken, you got to 15 million users, and you told us on the local market that you started with no budget. So how do you actually make that possible? If we have our product owners that are there and all the others that are working product, maybe to have like a mental map of managing this.
So first, I think that on the first thing, 1 sec. That's what happens when with the online event. I think that one thing is that it's a mistake to say that we didn't have any marketing budget, because from hiring the first person on the ground, you're actually paying that person. That person is not volunteering. So this means that you're actually having a marketing budget. This means that you're actually having a marketing budget. Then I think it's very important. We were talking in the beginning about product-driven growth, community-driven growth, and marketing-driven growth. I think I focused all the resources that I had on building a strong community around the product. So I don't know, there were a series of growth hacks that we applied. On one side, we went on a Revolut tour. So we were organizing community events. And I'm a firm believer in the butterfly effect. So basically, we had a playbook. When I joined, it was about 7 slides with the low-hanging fruits, things that have been tried out on other markets and worked. I looked at those things and I was like, how can I do them differently? Can I do some small tweaks in these initiatives, in these growth hacks, in order to get 10x the event? And I managed to. So, for example, with the Rev rallies, the playbook said that you're meeting. The playbook said that you're meeting only your top users, so the most active users. I said, no, I'm not going to bring just my active users there. I'm also going to bring people that are interested in the product, and this created a lot of word of mouth, because people that were interested could also attend the event. And then at the end of the event, it wasn't just me answering questions about Revolut. It was half of the room, because half of the room were our active users who knew our product really, really well.
I quite remember the moment I think I received some calls back then in the focus groups, to talk about it and understand better how do I use it. Actually, that reached me in the focus groups. So you already had your ambassadors there. What followed? What was next?
So we had the ambassadors. Then I thought one thing that's very important is to do communications properly. So I focused on content. I knew that from my times back at Uber. When we did at some point, we did a survey followed by a focus group in order to understand how come users sign up but then never use the service. The results were super surprising, because what I found out and what I discovered was that users were not using the app because they didn't know how to use the app. It's like, for me, it's the most surprising thing ever. Like, for me, what's Uber? Push a button, get a ride. So just open the app and push a button. For me, it was so straightforward. But truth is that for most of the users, it isn't. So if Uber wasn't straightforward, how can Revolut be, which is a much more complex app? So I focused a lot on educational content. And I generally refrain from saying let's do user education, because this creates like a dichotomy, and places like your users are dumb, but you're the smart one, and you need to educate your users. And the fact is that your users educate you as well, because some part of the product might not be relevant for them. I focused a lot on explaining how the product works, on content. I focused on one of the things I remember that I lobbied really hard in order to get a local social media page, because I needed to have a channel to communicate with my users in their own language and to explain the users the product in their own language. So I did a product education campaign, not a user education. I was telling that I don't like user education in general as a paradigm. I did a product education campaign. I focused a lot on content. I focused on thought leadership. I made sure that I spoke at a lot of events. I spoke with a lot of people. I was even organizing office hours at some point in order to meet with users. So one day per week, users were coming at the office if they wanted to meet me and talk to me. They could just book meetings with me, and it was really great because I found out a lot of things from the users and a lot of growth opportunities. On top of that, we also did a bunch of very good partnerships in the very beginning. I really like, so my favorite partnership that we did on the Romanian market was the partnership that we did with Vola, which is the biggest online travel agency in Romania. So yes, that's about it. And also talking again and getting back to the butterfly effect. One other thing that we were doing to grow globally at that point was to offer free card to users, the free card to new users. And the mechanics through which we were actually doing that was that we had a link, and the users that signed up using that link and downloaded the app from that link would order their first card free. And I said, okay, let's try it out differently. And I was looking how many cars do we actually get ordered per day, and I don't know, it was about 250. And I was like, okay, let's cover those costs, let's assume, and let's do a time limited campaign. So for 5 days, instead of sending the promo link, let's just change the pricing in app for the first card to zero. That's of course a cost, because you're covering the cost of the card that could have been ordered either way, but it removes an important friction in the funnel at sign up, because we had a lot of users that were downloading the app first, and then they couldn't order the card for free, and we were creating a lot of business that for customer support. And I was like, okay, let's try it out. So yet again, the zero budget doesn't actually work, because it's actually a budget.
So what happened in that week? So you assumed the cost for 1 week, and the numbers went. I mean, what happened? Can you hear me?
So yes, I do. So what happened was that for 5 days in a row, for the first time in Revolut's history, a market was growing faster than the UK. Which was like, I remember, because I was going to attend an event. So I've been driving. So I launched a campaign, and then I just jumped in the car and started driving to Brasov. So I wasn't connected, of course, while driving. And then when I arrived to Brasov, I had a WhatsApp message from my manager. From my manager, who's now the deputy CEO of Revolut Bank, and he was like, "What the? I'm not going to say what on earth did you do?" And I was like, "Oh, okay. What happened? Did I do something bad?" And he was like, "You're growing faster than the UK. How come?" And I remember that in the car. So I just parked my car and I opened my laptop, and everyone was so excited, and everyone was super excited about the fact that we managed. So it's a very small thing. It's not rocket science. So on the other hand side, the people that say that hypergrowth is not rocket science, marketing is not rocket science, but it's about being, it's about being committed to seeing the small thing that can bring the exponential improvements.
Yeah, actually, as you're saying, for the team, and I'm experienced that myself at at another level. It's really putting the time and the energy of yourself and the team into doing that. So, what were the channels? I mean, you're going faster than UK. But I mean, what does launching the campaign means? What made it happen, technically?
So basically, first we announced, again, talking about users as growth vectors. First, we announced the campaign in our community. So basically, we did an active users email where we actually told people about the campaign and asked them to support us and to share the good news with their friends. The fact that their friends can now sign up and order their first card for free. With very good results, because when people care, when people see the value that your product brings to them, they are going to refer your product further. So we tapped into the power of the community. We communicated, of course, on social media. And then one thing, and everybody told me, you're crazy, that's not news. And I was like, yes, the fact that you're doing a free card campaign is not news. But I've correlated that with the fact that Revolut just hit 75,000 users in Romania. So what I did was that I looked at the numbers and I communicated, like, Revolut hits 75,000 users in Romania, launches free car offers, free cars to all new users for the next 5 days. And I've presented all the statistics, how Romanians use Revolut, how Romanians use Revolut in context in comparison with other markets. So that was very appealing, and it had a lot of media interest. And the media also wrote about the free card campaign. So we basically got the ball rolling and create a snowball effect. And this is what got us to 100K users by the end of the campaign. So we've hit our KPI until the end of year much earlier. I think it was mid-October.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So that's behind the scenes. And then you went, I mean, you were talking about going CE, and I'm talking career now and going, but before going that. So we're talking about, you are talking a lot about work-life balance. And I think that's an important, I make this parenthesis here because it's important. And also I would like to open up for questions for everybody who has questions, both on the product or career growth or hyper growth of a product. Please keep them coming, and we'll try to prioritize those and answer to your questions. So if you're either watching on YouTube, on LinkedIn, or on Facebook, we'll receive the questions. You can ask them in the comments, and we'll answer to you. And before doing that, so you're talking about work-life balance and managing that. And I think this is challenge now for every professional, but especially if you're managing a product in the hyper growth. And we always told that that's important for you, and we're looking at your career growth also, and we'll talk shortly about that. But I mean, how did you actually manage to do all this? You're having a kid, still going into the holiday, managing your balance. How are you doing that as a professional? What's important there?
So I'm not sure to what extent I'd say that work-life balance is important in the traditional sense of having a 9 to 5, because I never had a 9 to 5, and I'll never have a 9 to 5. So when I was young and dumb, now I'm just old and dumb. That's a joke. So when I was young and dumb, I used to say there's no such thing as a work-life balance. There's only life, and I was working.
Exactly.
Sorry. And I was working all around the clock, and I was working 16 hours days, and I was working 7 days per week. And I was like, YOLO, you only live once. I'm so happy with what I do. And then I got burnt out really bad. And then I got in the hospital, and then my health was not good because my health was not good because I didn't actually take care about myself. I was so absorbed into my work that I was so passionate and driven that I didn't actually realize that I need to do something else as well, that I need to rest. I remember, so I had one thing that helped me a lot, and I really advise people that need help, never ever shy away and go to a therapist. So therapy changed me as a professional and as a human being. And I remember I was talking with my therapist, and at some point he asked me, why do you say that all the time that you don't work is lost time? And I looked at him, and in my mind it was like, this guy is crazier than I am. Why am I paying him? How can he say something that's that dumb? And I'm like, that's not correct. I never said this. And then he pointed out to me, so I don't have time to lose to go see my mother. I don't have time to lose to go to the movies. I don't have time to lose to watch series. And he was like, you're not. And I had such a valuable insight at this point, because I wasn't aware that I was actually at a subconscious level, I was
Yeah.
associating every time that wasn't work as lost time. So I worked really hard in order to make sure that I get over this. What's important for me? So I'm a maniac with discipline. Yes, I'm disconnecting from time to time. I set very clear boundaries, and by clear boundaries, I don't mean, I don't know. Maybe most of the people set clear boundaries. Okay, I work from 9 to 5. I can't work like that. But I set very clear boundaries in terms of spending time with my son. I try to take disconnected holidays from once in a while. So at least once per year, I go on holiday much more frequently than that, but oftentimes it's not disconnected. But once per year, I get a holiday where I ignore everything. I don't have email on my phone. I don't have the email on my phone. That's the reason why. I mean, email is not real time communication. Don't get me wrong. So I'm responding to the emails when I'm at my laptop, and I'm actually in the mood of responding to emails and not playing with my kid and responding to emails. And I'm never ever multitasking. So for me, I think it's very important. There's no such thing as okay, I'm doing this and you should do this as well because it's going to work. That's very sensible. It's very personal. So do you it's something that's it's something that's super personal, and you need to find a balance that works for you.
Yeah.
For example, for me, it's clockwise. In the morning, I wake up, I run, then I spend time with kid, and when I spend time with kid, I'm not checking my emails, and I'm not talking on the phone. And when I work, and I try to do one thing at a time, because I don't think oftentimes I hear, and I think there's a misconception, particularly in tech, that we're machines. We work like machines. No, you're not. You're just delusional, and you believe you're a machine, and you're going to crack. And when you're going to crack, you're not a machine to change a piece and to keep
Yeah.
functioning. It's going to be really bad. So my only advice on a work-life balance is like find the balance that works for you. I still work, for example, when I still work Sundays. It's something that I've always did, because I mean, I needed the time off on Saturdays. For me, it's a rule of thumb: 1 day per week is completely free. I'm not touching work. I like to work Sundays because I don't get any interruptions. So I work, and it's peaceful. I still work like after I put my kiddo to bed, because I can write more productively than with no interruptions. I sometimes work very early in the morning. But I think it's very important to set clear boundaries between the personal life and the work life, and to make it work for you, and stop believing you're a machine, and stop believing that you're good at multitasking, because you're not. You're just lying to yourself. There are switch costs that you don't understand, and once you stop multitasking, you're going to see that you're so much more productive.
Yeah, exactly. And I love your insight about, the therapy session where you switch. It oftentimes appears in my coaching session also with executives and entrepreneurs. Is this that whenever you're doing nothing, or you're just strolling, even the biggest Nobel prizes in science, the big ideas and connecting the dots happen actually where you're boring out, or you're in between working sessions. So you work, but then whenever you're doing something else, your mind is working for you in the background and making connections and making those things happen. So actually planning for those can really exponentially grow your strategy, your potential as a professional, and not as a machine. Brilliant inside that. Yeah.
So I think I think it's very important to value breaks and value the power of breaks. We're not educated like this. We're not grown like this. But I do hope that our kids are going to be. So I remember I studied. I did my master's abroad, and I was talking with some of my colleagues. And when I started the master's, of course, straight after I finished my university, I was talking with my colleagues. much older than me. Lots of them at least 5 years older than me. And I was like, but what did you do? And he was like, so I finished high school, and then I went. I stayed for 1 year, and I worked at McDonald's, and I did some volunteering in order to discover what I actually want to do. Then I did my bachelor studies in a field that was actually relevant for me. And then I took 2-3 years in order to, first I took a couple of months to travel and recharge, and then I took 2-3 years in order to work. And only afterwards I chose a master's in order to be a fit for what I want to do, like a specialization for what I want to do ahead. We're just rushing, and we're accustomed to rushing. We rush from school to uni to masters to MBAs, and then we rush from one job to another, and we oftentimes see no breaks whatsoever in between. Like you literally have no breaks. You just jump from one job to another, and you're getting so tired in the process, and you don't get the chance to actually discover yourself. So you're reactive. You're taking what comes your way, but you're not planning for what's going to come ahead. So you're taking the next job opportunity because you got a better offer, or you really clicked with some exec recruiter, or you found an announcement online, but you're not actually thinking, okay, am I really passionate about this? What do I actually want to do in my life? So we're living our lives on fast forward, and I think that's why it was very important for me at this point to just stop for a while. This doesn't mean that I don't do anything. It just means that I'm not rushing into something new.
It's music to my ears is exactly the advices we're giving in our processes. I mean, really plan, strategize for that, see what's working. And you're saying that from the gap year in the university before and then before master, and also, thinking about what you really want to do, what's the learning path through there, what can you do about that. So, I mean, I was talking about this pressure in the context, when you went up in the CE and then global growth. And I imagine that comes with a responsibility that also keeps you up all night, because sometimes it's not about doing, but it's about having all this pressure that is coming. So what was the challenge then when you passed from Romania CE to the global? You were talking something about aligning the processes, but how do you perceive the challenge, and what do you need to manage the global growth?
So I think the biggest challenge was to actually build scalable processes. So to make sure, one mistake that I did in the beginning was that I built processes that were so tailored to the size of the organization that we were at that moment, that by the end we formalized them and started implementing them. We realized that, oh well, we've already outgrown them. So building scalable processes was one of my biggest challenge. Then hiring in multiple geographies, accounting for cultural differences. I don't know. It's quite easy to hire across Europe. It's quite easy to hire in the US, and then you go to Japan, and you realize that you have no clue how to actually hire for Japan, and you learn it the hard way. There were a lot of challenges along the way, and then it's very important to understand that you're not as smart as you think you are. You don't have all the answers at any time. To listen to your people, to help them find solutions. So my role as global head of growth was to be a resource for my team. So I had to build the teams. I had to build the processes to help them succeed. And my role was to be a resource, to remove all the bottlenecks that my teams face in order to deliver their goals, not to give them the answers. They are smart enough to give the answers, and I oftentimes see, the more junior you are, the more tempted you are to believe that you have the answer, or that your answer is better. I've always, and that's similar with, I think Einstein was the one that said that the more I learn, the more I realize how dumb I am.
Exactly. And I fully, I mean, with here in the PentaBARs powered by Pentalog, we talk a lot about that. In agility, we have this concept of servant leadership, and actually being there for the teams and the other members to do the best of their jobs. And then what I hear also, and it's another piece of music to my ears in terms of leadership and leading cultures, is this one, believing that the team is smart enough to do the job. So I mean, it's a chicken and egg problem there. So it's
If the team isn't smart enough to do the job, that's your problem because you've hired them. So it means that you're a really bad manager. So before actually rushing into terminating the team, you should terminate yourself.
yeah.
So that's my rule of thumb over here, and it's very and on the collaboration, because you touched on the collaboration. I oftentimes see, particularly in the tech world, but also beyond, a type. I'm a competitive person. I've always been a competitive person. Not sure if it's an advantage or a drawback, but internal competition, it's eating you from inside out if you're not managing properly. Your people are working together. You want your people to be collaborative. You want them to help each other and to work with each other. You don't want your teams to compete with each other.
Yeah, yeah, truly. So you're now going further. I mean, what are some key learnings that you take out of the experience in Revolut?
So I haven't thought a lot about that. So I
It's
think
a
that
great space to do that. Start the draft here.
So I think that it's about building scalable processes that I already touched on. Then it's very important to move fast. Again, this is something that I've learned at Uber as well. The opportunities don't wait for you. You really have to move really fast.
Okay, brilliant. So I mean, what would you say it's next for Revolut?
So I think that's a question that's better to be answered
Yeah.
by my former colleagues. But I do believe in Revolut. I do believe that Revolut is a fantastic product, and I do think that it's going to grow into the world's first truly global bank. Revolut is removing boundaries like no other fintech has done before, and I think we're going to see Revolut reaching 100 million users as opposed to 15, how it has today. Yeah, and I also think that it's going to replace traditional banks in time as they roll out banking operations and diversify the product portfolio that they are offering.
I'm seeing this as a problem about trust, and I mean, if I imagine if I'm putting myself in my past shoes in Uber, a lot of people were talking about Uber. Nobody will go into a car with a strange person, and going there and having the trust in this. Then I'm thinking about Revolut, and I'm going to my period as an MBA student in Paris, and my professor was saying, I mean, the banks are there because they're brick and mortar and they have these big walls and they project trust. And then Revolut appears, and some other products in fintech, and they prove that you can place trust in a product that's purely digital. I mean, you have this little card and the brilliant packages that I've seen there, but it's still, I mean, it's still on paper, and there were talks about that. How do you actually manage that? How do you build trust in order to do that? And I mean, going with this direction for a big bank without being quite brick and mortar.
So I'm super happy that you opened the topic of trust. So building trust is hard. Losing trust is so easy and so fast, and you work so hard to build the trust, and then you're losing it in a second if you're not managing properly. For me, there's no such thing as doing marketing campaigns to build trust. For me, you can only can build trust in a single way: by being transparent, by being authentic, and by being honest with your users. There's no perfect product out there. So I oftentimes see apps that are picturing themselves as the perfect product. There's no such thing as perfect product. It's very important. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to mess things up, sometimes really bad. It's very important to communicate transparently with your users. Then it's very important to say, okay, I was wrong. Here is why I was wrong, and I'm going to make it right by doing this. If you're being transparent, authentic, and honest with your users, you're going to win their trust, no matter if you make mistakes, because everybody makes mistakes.
True. I had this CFO who is saying that whoever doesn't do any mistake is not really working, and and we're doing that, and we're looking at that, about that. Let's try a little creativity moment. Not only that we have Ionuț there on LinkedIn who asked questions, and apparently he has a product. We don't know much about it, but it's kind of an app for moms. And he's saying, how would you do growth strategy or hacks in an app for moms?
So I think there are a lot of things that you can do in order to grow the community. First, show them the value. So what's the value your app is bringing? My question is, do moms actually want to have a social app to only interact with other moms? If they do, what's the value that the app is bringing? Communicate it consistently. Build online events to bring people there. What I would do in the very early stages in order to test the product, I would just invite all my mom friends and all the people in my community to use the app, and then I would schedule 30 minutes call with them in order for them to tell me what they loved and what they hated about the app. And I would ask them a very powerful question. Oftentimes in customer interviews, we ask leading questions. What I would ask them would not be, what did you like, what didn't you like? I would ask them, what should this app do in order to tell everyone about it? So that's the 1,000 star experience as opposed to the 5-star experience. What should this app do in order to offer the 1,000 star experience? And then aim, okay, maybe you won't be able to provide the 1,000 star experience, but aim to provide that experience. And then I would organize online events for mom. I would put up a landing page and I would share it. And if the app is as revolutionary and as good as you think it is, you're going to see traction, and you're going to see unincentivized referrals, users just sharing to their mom friends this, because this is so good and you don't want to miss it. If you're not seeing that, of course you can start investing money in performance marketing and in other marketing channels to acquire users, but you're never going to reach hypergrowth because you're not having the initial traction.
Mm-hmm. Very, very nice as a perspective. And I hope, I mean, there are a lot of mom communities. I hope I'm seeing that going up. What would you advise any, product person, product people, anyone who's wanting to build a career there, to do in order to be more prepared for their career in product growth, in hyper growth, in generally product?
So I think that what I'd advise them not to do is don't stay away and say, okay, I'm just going to learn everything and then I'm going to start, because by the time you learn everything, things have changed so much that what you learned has already become redundant. So don't wait until that moment. Just try it out, or just start learning, read a lot. I think that continuous learning is so underrated nowadays. So we are big adepts of learning by doing, and the truth is that I would like to I would like to emphasize more on the continuous learning part and on learning beyond doing, on learning proactively. So choose your topic, start reading, or choose your persons to follow in that on that particular topic. Make sure that you are up to date, and then never be afraid to experiment and take chances.
I love your advice. I know that, I mean, you're saying that in this little sabbatical that you're spending now, you're learning. You're also writing on your blog, and that's for me, it's also, you know, settling the information and reflecting about it. So if you want to follow Irina, you can read there. If you want to, you know, learn more in the PentaBAR series, my colleagues just put a link here to subscribe to the other pentabars, and we're going for the more technical stuff, from live coding in Java to product talks about you know, various and you've seen there, we'll have a lot of companies and a lot of products that we can find ideas that can be shared and can be implemented, and try them on. Try to fail and learn from it and reflect on it. Thank you very much, Irina, for being here and for taking the time to spread the knowledge. We hope to have you again with your new encounters and with product talks in the future.
Thanks a lot, Mihai. It was a pleasure being here, and I'd love to keep in touch and hopefully to meet you in person soon.
Yeah, sure. Especially that we're in the same bubble. And stay tuned to the Pentalog and PentaBARs. We'll have every Wednesday. Next Wednesday will be another nice subject, and we'll hear about each other soon enough. Subscribe there because the others are happening not live, but in a Zoom in close circle, just to be more active with the questions between each other and be there. Thank you, Irina. See you soon.
Thank you. Have a great one.
Bye. Bye. Bye.